All right, guys, welcome into Tuesday edition of Black and Gold Breakdown. Fresh off of a Steelers win on Sunday against Atlanta, 18-10, starting up the season 1-0. A much better start to the season than a year ago at this time when the 49ers beat the bejesus out of the Steelers. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe, like the video, share it around, tell all your friends, do all that fun YouTube stuff. Today, the Steelers look like they will be starting Justin Fields in week 2 against Denver. Mike Tomlin said today that the Steelers are preparing to start Justin while Russell Wilson continues to deal with the calf injury. Mike Tomlin also added that Russell won't be practicing until at least Thursday. So all things look like Justin Fields will get the start in week 2 against Denver. No, revenge game for Russell Wilson is what all signs are pointing to as of right now. So what that means for Pittsburgh? Well, this past Sunday, the offense looked solid. They didn't punch it into the end zone, but for a week 1 offense and a brand new offense, it looked a lot better than what we've seen over the past 2 years with Matt Canada, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, whoever was under center. Justin Fields, especially off play action in particular, was very good. He led the NFL in completions on play action passes with 9. He went 9 of 13 for 81 yards. The 81 yards were 4th in the NFL on passes off play action in week 1. So there was clearly a comfortability with the offense from Fields. Clearly, Arthur Smith not digging too far deep into the playbook here. Started to open up a little bit more in the second half. And near the end of the first half with the deep pass from Fields to Pickens to set up a field goal before the half. So while they didn't punch it into the end zone, and that's something that obviously they'll have to do in week 2, it was an encouraging look from the offense in week 1. Not only because of the consistent big plays and splash plays in the offense. I mean, they had 2 splash plays in the offense to George Pickens, who had 6 catches for 85 yards. A nice day for Pickens. Almost had even more, if not for one of them being called back due to a offensive pass interference call that was kind of bad. The officiating in this game was less than optimal. I will add that in there as well. But the offense looked solid, and not only because of the splash plays, but because they had long, sustained drives. Let me pull up the numbers real quick just to see what they were exactly. But the Steelers only had 2 3-and-outs this game, which when you go back to last year, they were near the bottom of the league in plays per drive, near the bottom of the league in yards per drive. So to see them start off the year with long, sustained drives, that was a big thumbs up to Arthur Smith and the offense for at least doing that. And of course, they got to finish. That's something that will need to get better in week 2 and as the season goes on. But if you look at how long they held the ball, their first drive, 10 plays and a field goal. Their second drive, 10 plays and a field goal. Third drive, 8 plays, ended in a punt. But again, long, sustained drives. Their fourth drive was off of the Deshaun Elliott interception. They got a field goal. So points in 3 of their first 4 drives. And in 3 of their first 4 drives, they went at least 8 plays. That's progress. That's big progress from what it has been over the past 2 years. Then you look at their other drives. They had a 3-and-out to start the second half, but after that, 9 plays field goal, 5 plays field goal, 13 plays, and then the turnover on downs. The second 3-and-out, and then they ended the game with 7 plays and a field goal, and then the interception. So the offense was getting long, sustainable drives, and that's encouraging. Now they just got to finish. Wasn't going to be a finished product in week 1. We all kind of knew that. But that was an encouraging performance, despite, what the raw numbers will say. What's going on, DLW? Thanks for tuning in. What was the top for the game? Top what for the game? Unless that's an acronym for something that I'm missing. Time of possession. Okay. Let me see what the time of possession was for the game. So the Steelers held the ball 35 minutes and 36 seconds to the Falcons 24 minutes and 24 seconds. So I'm assuming that was kind of the goal. And I think we're going to see Justin Fields more in the run game as time goes on. He had 57 yards rushing. And I think we're going to see more design runs. I think that you'll be able to take advantage of the Broncos defense more than you were able to take advantage of the Falcons defense, considering they had 2 all-pro safeties in their secondary. I know a lot of people are making a big deal out of the passing chart from Fields, but, you know, when you've got Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons lurking in the middle and deep center halves of the field, you're not going to go out of your way to test that. You know, they took advantage through the air multiple times in the game. Yeah, they didn't have 300 yards passing, but Fields had multiple big plays to George Pickens. I was satisfied. And again, you want to see touchdowns put on the board, of course, but for the fact that they held the ball so long, they stunk at doing that last year. They could not establish long drives last year to save their life. And they didn't use play action hardly at all last year. And to see Fields lead the NFL in completions off play action, be 4th in yards off play action, and have multiple big throws downfield to Pickens, that's a big first step in week 1 and something that I wanted to see. So I was happy that I saw it. Again, I hope they finish better against Denver. I'm also horrified because this is such a game that we're going to go into it extremely confident based off how the Broncos looked last week against Seattle and say, all right, the Steelers should win this game. How many times have we done that as Steelers fans in the past and been like, okay, we're going to be incredibly confident about this, and they lose? We saw them lose to the Mike Glennon-led Bears. We saw them lose to a bad Dolphins team, I think 2016. Saw them lose last year to two-win teams in consecutive games. This feels like a game that they should absolutely dominate and will either win by the skin of their teeth or they'll outright lose. That's what I'm scared of. Don't want that to happen, but it's what I'm scared of. I just have no confidence that the Steelers are going to start off 2-0. I don't know why. Maybe because I've been burned so much over the past few years thinking that they can do just that. So I'm being extremely cautious with how I go into this. It's a road game in Denver. Doesn't matter how bad Bo Nix is. Like, it's certainly possible they'll find a way to make him look like Joe Montana. That's what I'm very scared of. Did they think Russ is going to throw over the middle all game? No, it was the game plan. Yeah. Again, when you got Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons is the only other safety in the NFL over the past 5 years to have 3 All-Pro selections outside of Minka. So even though he's getting up there in years, he's still a good player. And Jesse Bates was just an All-Pro a year ago. So you got maybe the best safety tandem in football. Why would you want them to throw directly at those two? No, they had a smart game plan. They got multiple chunk plays in the air. They held onto the ball. They consistently moved the ball and sustained long drives. I was satisfied with how the offense looked in week 1. They're going to need to continue to improve. Like, you can't do that every week and expect to win. But for a week 1 offense that's brand new, with a brand new quarterback, a brand new coordinator, the fact that they were able to hold the ball for over 35 minutes and score on a majority of their drives, if they can turn, half those field goals into touchdowns, that's pretty damn good. I will take that, especially if the defense continues to play as well as they did. Because if not for a bad offsides call on TJ Watt, they don't allow a touchdown in week 1. So I was very satisfied with the offense. Again, I expect it to get better. You can't play like that for 17 weeks. But for a week 1 offense that's brand new, I was satisfied with how well it went. And, of course, the defense played awesome. But I am worried about the Broncos, and we'll talk about Denver a little bit more in the second show that we'll do this week for Black and Gold Breakdown. We'll do at least 2 Black and Gold Breakdowns a week throughout the season. So if you want multiple Steelers shows per week, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the videos, all that fun stuff. I also want to say about Dante Jackson and Deshaun Elliott, man, hell of a debut for both of them. Dante Jackson could have had 2 picks. Kirk Cousins threw a ball that hit him directly in the face mask. So he could have had 2 interceptions. He gets the one to kind of seal the win near the end of the game. Deshaun Elliott made a really nice interception. TJ Watt obviously had a terrific game. Peyton Wilson had a touchdown-saving tackle on Bijan Robinson that kept Atlanta out of the end zone. They settled for a field goal. Joey Porter held Drake London to, I think, 3 catches for 15 yards or something. I have to go back and look at his exact numbers. Defense played awesome. And you look at, Najee Harris had a pretty solid day overall. They had 70 yards on the ground. Wasn't anything like crazy. But that was a typical Steelers win. That's kind of what we've grown accustomed to. But the offense did look noticeably better than it has consistently over the past few seasons. So that was something that I was glad to see. If you have any sort of questions, comments, be sure to leave them, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on Twitter. You leave them in the comments and we'll get to it. We do need to see more from the receiver room, though, right? Outside of George Pickens, there was only 3 combined completions to receivers. Van Jefferson had 1 for 1 yard. Calvin Austin had 1 for 7. And I couldn't tell you who the other one was. Who had the other catch? I got the box score in front of me. I might as well look. The other receiver who caught a pass was... Never mind. Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson combined for 2 catches, and they were the only other receivers to have catches on the day. George Pickens had 6, and then Freiermuth had 4 catches. Jalen Warren had 2. Michael Pruitt, Najee Harris, Darnell Washington all had 1. But the only other receivers to catch passes during the game were Austin and Jefferson. Shout out to Scotty Miller, though. He made 2 really good plays on special teams. On the Boswell punt, he sprinted his ass off downfield and got the tackle. And after Cam Johnston got hurt, he was the holder and helped the Steelers get their 6th field goal on the day. By the way, shout out to Boz. 6 field goals ties a franchise record. 3 of them were longer than 50. 2 of them were longer than 55. Dude's the best kicker in football. Absolutely the best kicker in football right now. Justin Tucker, to put it into perspective, since the beginning of last season, Justin Tucker has made 1 field goal of 50 or more yards. Boz made 3 in 1 game. Boz made 2 in 1 half. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think he made all 3 of his 50-yarders in the first half. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me on that. But he made 3 in 1 game. Tucker's had 1 of those since the beginning of the 2023 season. Boz is the best kicker in football. Bar none. He's great. Devontae soon. Hey, I've been banging that drum for a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised, especially if the Raiders just don't get this thing together. They looked bad against the Chargers on Sunday. Their defense looks solid, but eventually, they were on the field for too long. Eventually, the Chargers were going to break a big run, and they did at the end of the game, which led to the McConkey touchdown. So the Raiders' defense can only do so much. They have a really good defensive unit with Crosby, with Christian Wilkins, but they can only do so much. That offense is going to be rough because their quarterback is not good. And unfortunately for them, neither of their quarterbacks are very good. So I can definitely see a situation where the Raiders are, the defense is playing really well, but the offense isn't holding up their end of the bargain. They're struggling at the deadline. And they decide, all right, we'll move Devontae for some draft picks and really plan for the future. Because what are they doing this year anyway? You think they're going to make it to the playoffs with Gardner Minshew? No. You think they're going to win a Super Bowl with Gardner Minshew? No. We know that's not going to happen. And if that's the case, well then move your veteran receiver to a team that does have higher aspirations. And whether or not you think the Steelers are Super Bowl contenders, I don't, but I think that they have higher aspirations in terms of playoff success than the Raiders do, and a higher possibility of achieving those goals than the Raiders do. And if that's the case, why not get some draft capital for Devontae and move on? This whole thing, since Devontae got there, what have they accomplished? Not a thing. This is year 3 of Devontae in Las Vegas. Missed the playoffs both years so far. Gone through a coaching change already. This is the third quarterback that they've been on, the fourth quarterback they've been on. Jarrett Stidham played for a game. Obviously, Derek Carr, Gardner Minshew, Jimmy Garoppolo. What is this? Fifth? Because Jimmy, Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, Derek Carr, Jarrett Stidham. Like, that thing's not going anywhere, man. So it would make sense. Steelers, if they want to make a move at the deadline, especially if they're like 6-2, 5-3 going into the bye, like they absolutely need it. That's another thing that was very evident against the Falcons. They need another receiver. Again, outside of Pickens, wide receivers caught 2 passes for 8 yards. That ain't going to get the job done, bruv. You got to get more. And again, it was very clear that Omar Khan's plan was Brandon Ayuk or bust. He seemed pretty confident that the Ayuk deal was going to get done. It didn't. And so they're left with what they have. But doesn't mean that you still can't make a move. There's plenty of receivers that, like Devontae Adams, who I think will become available before too long on these bad teams. They're playing the Broncos this weekend. You don't think that if the Broncos keep looking the way they've looked, that Cortland Sutton isn't going to want to get out? It's possible. You don't think that if the Raiders are sitting at, 3-6, Devontae's not going to want to leave? Or wouldn't it be smart for them to just get some draft capital to build for the future by getting rid of him? Makes sense to me. But the Steelers very clearly need another receiver, whomever that may be. I saw somebody on Twitter say, do you think that the Browns would trade Amari Cooper to the Steelers? No. Like, the Browns are dumb, but I would be very surprised if they traded Amari Cooper in division, much less to Pittsburgh. I don't think that happens. Absolutely not. I would be very, very, very surprised if that happened. But Steelers are the only team with a win in the AFC North right now because the annual Week 1 collapse of the Cincinnati Bengals took place, where they lost their third straight Week 1 game. In a game that their third straight Week 1 game that they should have won. Because remember, they played the Steelers in 2022, a team that they were better than. Burrow threw 4 picks. Even then, they tied the game on the last play. Minka blocked the extra point. The Steelers ended up winning in overtime. They lose to the Browns last year. Burrow was dealing with a calf injury, but they played like death in a monsoon of a game. And then this year, you can't beat the New England Patriots, who were going to compete for a top 5 pick in the NFL draft this year. Like, this could be one of like 3 or 4 games that the Patriots win. And then obviously Cleveland, man, good Lord. At what point do you just eat that and pull the plug on the Watson thing? He is horrible. And if you want to read more in depth on my thoughts about Deshaun Watson, I just did a piece on him and the Browns for the Sporting News. But Deshaun Watson is absolutely cooked. And so are the Browns if they keep playing him. Like, at some point, you're going to lose the locker room. And me and Matt Verderam talked about this yesterday in the Pump Fake. You can watch that on this channel, or you can listen to it wherever you get your podcast, the Pump Fake with Jarrett Bailey. It's not good. And eventually, Matt made a really good point. He's like, if you're Kevin Stefanski, at what point do you march up to Jimmy Haslam's office and say, Jim, it's either Deshaun Watson or me. I'm not playing him because this is embarrassing. And there's 52 other guys in the locker room that can help us win, and that guy is holding all of them back. So now another case just came out about Watson. He's being sued again for sexual assault. And if you read that report that Florio put out, good Lord, is it gruesome. So not only does he stink at football, but he's also a scumbag. Like, nobody in that town on that team can rally around that guy. Can't do it. They're going to pull the plug when the NFL suspends him again and they can void the contract. Yep. And that is part of the contract, where if new allegations come up and he's suspended by the NFL for it, then the Browns can void the contract. And you know what? Like, yeah, I know a lot of Browns fans are obviously hoping for that for obvious reasons. And I'm sure a lot of football fans are hoping for that for obvious reasons. But at the same time, man, you're the Browns. You made your bed. You did the deal knowing full on what he was accused of. and you still gave him $230 million completely guaranteed. So on one hand, like, I don't want Deshaun Watson to get that money, and I would love to see it get voided, and I would love to never see him play in the NFL again. On the other hand, though, the Browns are idiots and morally just dead for doing that in the first place, and I would love to see them face some consequences for their actions. And of course, this is bigger than football. Like, you think about the victims and everything like that. Like, hopefully they are okay, or as okay as they can be. And again, that's much bigger than, football. That's obviously, we're going to talk about the football part of it because, that's my job as, somebody who covers the NFL, is to talk about the football portion of it. But the human element of it, we can point out he sucks at football, and he's also just a shit human being. And I hope that anybody affected by him is doing okay. But at some point, man, yeah, the Browns, I do think that they are hoping to God that this ends up with Watson getting suspended so they can just cut the cord, void that thing, and rinse their hands clean. But man alive, it's not good. And again, the Browns should be absolutely ashamed of themselves for even giving him the deal to begin with. Which is why, again, I say, like, yeah, obviously, I don't want to see Deshaun Watson get that money, and I don't want to see him play in the NFL anymore. Because, by the way, once the Browns, if and when they are able to void that contract and they cut him, he's not going anywhere else. No team in the NFL is looking at the way he's played over the last, now the third season that he's with Cleveland, and saying, yeah, we'll take him, along with that media frenzy of backlash. Yeah, we'll happily bring in Deshaun Watson. No. Now, if he was balling out right now, there'd be a lot of quiet people trying to push that stuff under the rug. But him being horrible at football, as well as somehow being worse as a human being than he is at football, is impressive. And so we're going to keep talking about it. I know this is a Steelers show. I'm kind of going off on a tangent about Deshaun Watson. So if you want to read my full thoughts on it, go to the Sporting News and read my piece about Deshaun Watson. If you want the exact title of it, it is Deshaun Watson is cooked, and so are the Browns if they keep playing him. So you can read my thoughts about that there. And then we'll go on to Baltimore now. The Ravens, I talked about this going into the season where I'm just like, look, bro, no one's talking about all their turnover on either side of the ball. And by the way, it showed up with their offensive line that looked horrible and had 4 illegal formation penalties. Ronnie Stanley had 3 of them. Roger Rosengarten got destroyed by Chris Jones. Now, luckily for the Ravens, Lamar ran all over the Chiefs. But near the end of the game, Leo Chenal made 2 incredible plays, spying Lamar and closing the gap on him when he was about to run, which forced a 3rd down. And then he's playing coverage on Justice Hill in the flat, which forced an incompletion. Baltimore settled for a field goal. So, yeah, like, Lamar ran all over the place, but he also missed a wide open Zay Flowers in the end zone. And let me point this out real quick, too. Any other quarterback misses that throw, we're talking about it for a month. But we gotta coddle Lamar. Got to make sure that nothing bad said about poor old Lamar. So no one's really talking about that. And then obviously the throw to Likely, it's out of bounds. The Chiefs win. That game did not feel like it was close, though. It felt like the Chiefs beat the hell out of them and kind of like lulled themselves to sleep a little bit, which allowed Baltimore to get back into it. Well, I mean, credit to the Ravens for taking advantage of that. But like the Likely touchdown, I mean, it was an improv by Lamar, scrambles out, throws it up, Likely catches it, and then the Chiefs miss like 4 tackles while he runs to the end zone. And yeah, like it just felt like a weird ending to a game where the Chiefs dominated for like 58 minutes of it, but let Baltimore hang around. But I'll tell y'all right now, the Ravens, defensively, they still look solid. Offensively, they are a disorganized looking, just hodgepodge. Like, yeah, they obviously Lamar's good. And Derrick Henry's there, but that's not a team that I look at and say Super Bowl contender. So, in terms of how this affects the Steelers, we'll see. I still think that that's a playoff team in terms of Pittsburgh. I'm not worried too much about the Bengals because they've done this now for 3 straight years and they've been fine both years, you know? So last year Burrow gets hurt. So that's kind of the asterisk in this. But the year before in 2022, when they crapped the bed against Pittsburgh in week 1, they wanted to lose against Dallas in week 2 as well, and they still went to the AFC Championship game. So if this goes past September for the Bengals, then I'll start to worry. I still think the Bengals are going to win the division. I think Pittsburgh's going to be second and get a playoff spot. And I think that Baltimore is like the first team out in the playoffs. I think the Browns are a dumpster fire. All right. Oop, my bad on that. If Wilson is healthy and the Steelers decide to stick with Fields, how much does Russ become a distraction? Good question. I don't know. Russ doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to be like if it was Cam Newton, and I don't mean a dunk on Cam Newton, but like Russell Wilson and Cam Newton, 2 pretty different guys, right? Where Cam is Cam's loud, like Cam's going to say how he feels. He's done plenty of that since he has Cam retired yet? I don't think he's retired. I don't think he officially retired. Like if somebody called him, he could come in at some point. So that's kind of how I look at it. Like if it was Cam Newton, then yeah, it would probably be more of a distraction because he might make it more of a distraction. I don't think Russ is going to make it too much of a thing. I think he's going to say all the right stuff. I think he's going to, be supportive and all of that. Is he going to want to play it? Of course. But I don't think he's going to go out of his way to make it a distraction. And if he does, then the Steelers can cut him because they're paying him nothing. So I'm not too worried about it from that aspect. I will say it would become interesting though, right? Because remember in 2022, the Steelers voted Mitch Trubisky captain and he wasn't starting by week 4. I think that's when they pulled the plug on that, week 4, when they played the Jets. Was that week 3 or 4? I cannot remember. Because they played the Bengals to start, and then they played the Browns on Thursday night. I'm pretty sure that was the week 2 game. Maybe they put him week 3. I don't remember the exact time. But regardless, they made him a captain, and they pulled him before we were 5 weeks into the season. So just because they named him a captain, that doesn't mean anything. Kenny Pickett was a captain last year too, and he's gone. So not worried too much about that because if he does become a distraction, they are paying him the league minimum and they can cut him and move on. I was kind of impressed with the Steelers O-line. Steelers offensive line was really good. Zach Frazier, really good. In terms of the play action stuff, I touched on it earlier if you're just tuning in. Justin Fields on week 1, 9 of 13, 81 yards from play action. 9 completions, led the NFL. 81 yards was 4th in the NFL. And of all quarterbacks to have at least 10 dropbacks on play action, he was pressured the least. 7.7 pressure percentage. Pretty damn good. Good job by the offensive line. I thought, Frazier, if you look at his advanced numbers, if you look at his PFF stuff, he played tremendous. That's your franchise center going forward. Dan Moore's dealing with an ankle, but Dan Moore, for as much as I've kind of dunked on Dan Moore, he played fine. Now he is dealing with an ankle, so we could see Troy Fautanu, if he's healthy and good enough to go, he'll probably start, if I had to guess. And if and when that happens, I don't think he's giving it back. So we'll pay attention to that going forward as well with Dan Moore. But yeah, the offensive line looks solid. Justin wasn't under a ton of pressure. How many times did he get sacked this game? He got sacked twice, but I think a lot of that too, there was one of those was him just trying to extend the play and doing a little bit too much. But Justin did fine. Again, if you aren't aware of his numbers for the game: 17 to 23, 156 yards, sacked twice, had a passer rating of 92. So he did fine. Again, the few chunk plays downfield, the longest being a 40-yard completion to Pickens. What's up with no middle of the field targets? We talked about that a little bit earlier. I think a lot of it was game plan because the Falcons have Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons, two all-pro safeties in the middle of the field. And so obviously if you're a Steelers defense, or an offense, you're not going to, play cat and mouse with that. If you can avoid it, you're going to avoid it. So that would be my guess as to why they were staying away from the middle of the field, is because the Falcons have maybe the best safety tandem in football. And one of them could play a little bit higher. The other one could play a little bit lower to try to take away both levels of the middle of the field. And credit to them, they did that. But I think some of it was game plan too. We're like, okay, let's avoid Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates. Let's take advantage of one-on-one matchups on the outside, which they did. So I would chalk it up to that more than anything. We'll see what the week 2 charts look like compared to week 1, because it's not as if the Broncos have any, all pros back there at safety anymore. So if the charts look relatively similar, then yeah, we can start having that conversation. But I would assume that those were more game plan than anything, of not targeting the deep middle portion of the field. Because if you can avoid throwing at 2 all-pro safeties and risk turning the ball over, then you do that. And again, if it was, a Mahomes or Josh Allen, yeah, you're going to just do whatever you want because you have an elite quarterback. The Steelers don't have that. No matter how high you are on Justin Fields, he's not that. Now, he's an elite athlete, but not an elite quarterback. He can continue to get better, but, would those passing charts have looked different if you had a Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes? Yeah, sure, probably. But you're going to play a little bit more risk-free football when you have a guy that, is in a new offense, don't necessarily know what you're going to get as a whole. So I'm not worried about it. Again, we'll see what it looks like week 2 and see how the offense as a whole looks week 2. Again, I am so cautious about the week 2 game against Denver. Because how many times as Steelers fans have we gone into a game saying, oh yeah, they should win this game? Did it twice last year. Did it against Arizona, did it against New England. They lost both of them. They lost to the Mike Glennon Bears in 2017. They lost to a bad Dolphins team in 2016. Like, been here, done that too many times. So I'm very nervous. I don't care how bad Bo Nix looked. He looked horrible. I know he looked horrible. I've said all offseason he was going to be horrible. Steelers could still make him look like Joe Montana somehow. I've just seen it too many times as a fan. And I can see it right now where like Bo Nix looks somewhat decent and then everybody overreacts in week 2, be like, oh, Bo Nix. Like, bro, he can't throw the ball like further than 10, 15 yards downfield. It's not good. There's a reason that he went from Auburn to Oregon and they dumbed down the offense at Oregon because he can't throw the ball far. So I don't think it's going to end well for Bo Nix overall. But is there a world where somehow he looks decent enough and they beat the Steelers? Yeah, because I've seen it too many times. Bet the under in that game. Bet the under in all Steelers games, by the way. That's easy money. Just bet the under. You will win 100% of the... Okay, I shouldn't say that. You will win a lot of the time. Guess who bet the under and won? Me. Because the under was, I think, 40.5 and total points was 28. You could probably go alt under and win. What is the over-under for Steelers Broncos? Oh, goodness. What's this? All right. Let's look at what the over-under is, at least on FanDuel, because that's the book I use. If FanDuel wants to sponsor this podcast, that would be lovely. So let's look and see what the over-under is real quick. So for Steelers Broncos, first of all, the Steelers are favored in this game by 3. The over-under is 36.5. I would still happily take the under on that. I'm going to bet it right now. I'll put my money where my mouth is. Fine by me. Throw $20 on the under. Boom, done. Next. So take the under. Both of these teams probably aren't going to score a lot of points. Whoever wins, it'll probably be like a 17-14 game, 20-14 game. Even then, that's probably a little bit high. So we'll see. I'm very cautious about this game. I'm so cautious. But we'll talk about that more in the show later this week. Again, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do so. Get 2 Steelers shows a week. You'll get every episode of the Pump Fake, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts as well. The Pump Fake with Jared Bailey just did the Week 1 recap show with Matt Verderam. We're going to do one later today as well, talking about 49ers Jets with Doug Farrar. So subscribe to the channel, leave a review, leave a comment, tell your friends about it, and hang out with me all season to talk Steelers, talk NFL, all that fun stuff. Next Tuesday, pretty big interview for the channel. I'll leave hints about it on Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's @JBaileyNFL. So I'll leave little bitty hints about it, who it's going to be with. Or should I just tell you now? Should I tell you now? Maybe. Nah, I'll make you wait. Well, it's pretty big. It'll be good. And it'll go up on the written portion will go up on either Sporting News or SB Nation. Don't know where that will be at yet. But the visual portion will be here. And it'll be a lot of fun. It's a pass rusher. I'll give you that. One of the premier pass rushers in the NFL. So there's a little nugget for you. And then it can be a surprise when it comes out. Huh? How about that? So again, if you're not already subscribed, you'll get that video next week with one of the premier pass rushers in the NFL. And then 2 black and gold breakdowns per week. All the episodes of the Pump Fake. So hang out with me all NFL season. Like, subscribe to the channel, do all that fun stuff. We'll be back later on in the week to talk more Steelers, especially after the official starter is named. Again, it looks like Justin Fields will start. Mike Tomlin said that today in the press conference, that they are preparing as if Justin will start because Russell Wilson's still dealing with the calf. He's not going to practice until at least Thursday. So we can read the tea leaves here. Justin played well enough in week 1. Why put Russell Wilson out there if he's not 100%? Roll with Justin Fields and see if he can't get you another win. Hopefully he does. Because if the Steelers start off 2-0, then, those games later on in the year that people are worried about, if you drop one, it's not ideal, obviously, but you can live with it because you got the early season wins. So if they can rack up wins before the bye week, they'll be in a good spot. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Be back later on in the day. Appreciate you all for tuning in as always. Have a good one.